Okay, can you give me a thumbs up, somebody, if you can see my presentation? Perfect. Thank you so much. Looks like we still have just a couple of people coming in. If you're just now joining us, if you don't mind staying on mute during our presentation, and we'll stop and you can either drop your questions in the chat or you can come off mute during our quick breaks for questions. If you will drop your name in the chat so that we can take attendance for you being here today. So welcome, you are at the Fine Arts Portfolio Peer Reviewer meeting. I do appreciate you being here today. I believe it's important for us to have these discussions, especially for those who are new to peer review. And we'll go ahead and get started. This is the Best for All strategy. We are discussing educators today. Today on our agenda is the timeline of peer review, the resources available to you for peer review. We'll discuss the rubrics and things that I want you to understand about the rubrics and keep in mind while you're scoring. And we'll also discuss the support that is provided for you throughout the peer review process. If you have not already done so, please log into the platform and switch your role to peer reviewer or expert reviewer and view your video on how to score in the platform, and then click on your certification exam. Remember, the certification exam is not a real exam. It automatically certifies you, but it does require you to do these two things before you are able to start peer review. And peer review will begin on May 28th. It's a Tuesday, right after Memorial Day. So the collections are scored first come, first serve basis. So we do ask that peer reviewers start in that first week. Some of you have very small models that you're scoring, and we want to make sure that you are able to reach as many scores or as many collections of scoring as you're able to do. So that does not mean rush through your scoring. There will be some available for you to score, but we do advise that you start that first week and not wait until the second or third week of scoring, because there may not be guaranteed. If your goal is 50, you may not be able to reach that 50 or that 100 in the second or third week if you don't start in the first week. So we have taken in response from peer reviewers that they do want to score more. So we have lessened the amount of peer reviewers and even given our expert reviewers 2 models to expertly review. The scoring window will end on Friday, June 14th. Now, if you log into your model now into peer review, you will see where it says, thank you for scoring. Anytime there is not a collection in the queue to be scored, that's what it's going to say. That does not mean peer review is over and that everything has been scored. We will send you an email to let you know when your model is complete. And that is often before that June 14th time. But if you have not heard from us and you see that thank you for scoring, that could mean that there are collections that are currently being scored for the first time, and they may need a second review. So if they need a second review, they will go into that second review queue, in which time it will pop up that there will be a collection available. So you'll want to continue to check that queue, even if it says thank you for scoring and it says nothing's available. There may be something available later on in that afternoon. So you'll want to keep checking that until you hear from Tracy or I that your model is complete and there are no more collections to be scored. So when we talk about resources, if you go to the team-tn website. That is where we house all of our portfolio resources. So hopefully you are familiar with that website. If you hover over the tab that says Student Growth Portfolios, you'll see Portfolio Teacher Guidance. I hope you're aware of this tab is also. And on that page, you will see Portfolio Teacher Guidance. And here is where you will find those rubrics for your model. You are able to print those rubrics out or have them readily available to you while you're scoring, because there is such a huge number of fine arts rubrics available, and people could have chosen any number of those. Please, please, please have these rubrics readily available for you to look at so that you can truly understand what the rubric is asking for while you're scoring the student work. So when you're looking at the collections, we do have the Perform, Produce, or Present collection, Create, Respond, and Connect. And those rubrics are separated by tabs on the Excel sheet when you access that from the website. When you are scoring, keep in mind the differences in the levels. So we're looking at level 1, level 2, level 3, kind of insufficient for that expectation. They're inconsistently showing mastery for that domain. But once they reach level 3, 4, and 5, they're starting to master those expectations. They're starting to become more independent with those that developmental level without the teacher support. And once they reach that 6 and 7 stage, they're moving on in their growth and they're moving on to that next level of development. There is a special time when we score level 1 at both point A and point B. There are certain scenarios when you are not going to be able to score student work. So some of the ways that you would not be able to score student work is if the student work is not aligned to the standard. And we'll talk about some of those verbs and adjectives here in a moment to make sure that those assessments are aligned. But if it is not aligned to the standard, then it is not able to be scored. And we do have to mark it at point A and point B because at level 1, because we want to show no growth in that, because we aren't able to determine the growth based on that standard. Other reasons that a student work may not be scored is if there is a verbal component to the standard, or if it is a performance-based standard where, especially when it comes to dance performances, musical performances, vocal performances, if there is not a video available and we need to see that performance, then you're unable to score that. That would be a time when point A and point B must be scored a level 1. Keep in mind, if you score at point A and then you get to point B and point B is not able to be scored because they did not provide sufficient evidence or they did not provide a video when needed, then you have to go back to point A and also score a level 1 for point A. We don't want to leave that score at point A. Say you scored a level 2 and then you come to point B and scored a 0. We don't want to show negative growth. We want it to be level 1 at both point A and point B. And we noticed some of the scores last year, some of the peer reviewers forgot to go back and do that. So we want to make sure that you are going back. And if it is not scorable at either point A or point B, both point A and B are level 1. So if context narrative is required or an answer key is required for you to score it and it is not provided, then you won't be able to score it. The students, if it is a differentiated level sample and it's not a grouped sample, if the student at point A emerging and point A proficient are the same student, then one of those collections cannot be scored. One of those groupings cannot be scored because you cannot have the same student at emerging and at proficient. So you could score the emerging one, but proficient would have to be scored a level 1 at both A and B. Now, if you are scoring a collection and you're looking at point A and then you get to point B and it's not the same student or the same group of students, then that work is also not scorable because you cannot show growth if it is not the same student at point A and point B that you're assessing. So level 1 would have to be marked for both point A and point B. And if a teacher's work comes up blank, if they just submit a blank piece of paper or nothing is on the video, then it would have to be scored at level 1 at both point A and point B. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pause for just a moment. Do we have any questions in the chat? Does anybody need to come off of mute in regards to level 1 scoring, timeline?
Micah, currently there are no questions in the chat.
All right. If you don't have any questions, then we're going to move on to the specific things to look at in the rubric. So what I want you to do when you're scoring is to really look over your model's rubrics and take note of those verbs in the rubrics. So I just took a couple of different grade levels in different domains, different models, and I want you to take note. So in this 5th grade dance, it says insufficiently for level 1, insufficiently collaborates with peer ensemble members to repeat sequences, synchronize actions, and refine spatial relationships to improve performance quality. Applies feedback from others to establish personal performance goals. So I want you to really look at those verbs. So in the first one that I have highlighted, collaborates with peer ensemble members. So I want you to think about when you are scoring these, what does that evidence look like? Are they showing evidence that the students are collaborating with each other? And then applies feedback from others to establish personal performance goals. Did the teacher include that feedback? Did the teacher include those performance goals that the student has set for themselves? So I really want you to think about what actions the students are showing toward the standard. Is the assessment aligned to the standard if they're not showing evidence of these things? So looking at the high school general music connection standard, demonstrates how interests, knowledge, and skills relate to personal choices and intent when creating, performing, and responding to music. So those verbs are demonstrates. So the student needs to be demonstrating somehow in their way how the interests, knowledge, and skills relate when creating, performing, and responding to music. So they need to either have music they've created, they need to be performing music, or they need to be responding to music. So really take a look at those verbs. The high school visual arts response. The student is evaluating the effectiveness of an image or images. So the standard isn't asking for the student to create an art piece. It's asking the student to evaluate the effectiveness of the visual art piece. So really take note of what the standard is asking for And this is where those context narratives are so important for the fine arts models, because that is where the teacher is able to explain some of the background information on what is going on with these samples. And so a lot of your information is going to be there. Make sure that you look at every piece of evidence and the entire context narrative before you start grading or scoring your work. So some more examples would be this 7th grade media arts standard for respond. So the student is developing and applying criteria to evaluate various media artwork. So we need that criteria that the student has developed. We need that criteria that the student is applying. We need that evidence that the student is applying their criteria to pieces of artwork. So if that is not included, then this is not aligned to the standard. So we need to make sure that it is aligned. And I want you to also think about all the different ways this could be applied, because the way that you think about explanation could be in a written piece, but the teacher may present evidence in a video, in a student interview. So there could be several different options to show evidence for this. So I want you to see how you can relate that evidence to the standard. So like in this kindergarten standard, kindergartners, especially at point A, if it's at the beginning of the year, are not going to be able to write to explain. So there may be a video component where the kindergartner is talking about this art piece that they're creating. And so really looking at that growth of explanation from the beginning and at point A and at point B after instruction, not necessarily the kindergartner's ability to write out their explanation. And the last one that I have an example here is a 3rd grade visual arts create. So it's asking for them to add details to enhance the meaning of a piece of artwork. So you want to look for how they're adding details. What have they added? And that may be explained in that context narrative. So that's why it's so important that you look at all pieces of evidence before you score, so that you know the full picture before beginning to score. Please understand that we are not in the business of trying to score teachers level 1 at both A and B. We really want to make sure that we're giving those teachers a benefit of the doubt, and we're trying to score the best work that has been presented to us. So if it is able to be scored, we want to score it, but also we want to score work that is aligned to that standard. We want to make sure teachers are understanding what these standards mean and what an assessment and mastery of these standards looks like. The next thing I want you to look at in your rubrics are the adjectives. So this is where that scoring piece comes in, that rubric piece where we go from insufficiently, inconsistently, sufficiently, exceptionally, and masterfully. So I've highlighted the differences. If we look back at these scoring rubric levels, remember that insufficiently is that below grade level development. They are not showing a grade level expectation of this standard. Inconsistently at level 2, they demonstrate part, but not all of the expectations. So sufficiently at level 3, that's when they're beginning to show expectations. They still need that teacher support. And level 4, they are starting to have that exceptional meets or exceeds expectations. So there's very few errors, very few inconsistencies. Level 4, They are mastering that standard. They have 0 errors. There are no inconsistencies. It's perfect work. So then you need to look at what level 6 and level 7 truly means for that standard, which means you're going to have to do a little bit of cross grade notations on your rubrics. So you're going to have to look at what a level of growth is, and you're going to have to go to that next grade level to see what the expectation is for that next grade level. And so that's what I have here for these rubrics as well. So if you're looking at a high school 2 visual arts create standard. So at level 5, it's asking masterfully reflects upon, revises, and refines works of art and design in response to personal artistic vision. If they are mastering at that level, the level 6 says demonstrates one level of growth from level 5 criteria. So we don't have another level in high school 2. So you would have to move to that high school 3 for the same standard, that create 3.A. So you look at that next level and it says reflects upon, revises, and refines works of art or design, considering relevant traditional and contemporary criteria, as well as personal artistic vision. So they're moving away from their personal viewpoint and they're moving into relevant traditional contemporary artwork and criteria. So then if they're insufficient with that at level 1, and they're mastering that, and then they move into that inconsistently or sufficiently, you want to look at those next levels and see where they are in that next grade level. So let's bring that to a middle school teacher. So 7th grade, if at 7th grade, they are masterfully selecting varied repertoire to study based on music, reading skills, and so on. If they have mastered that and you need to move to that next level of growth, you want to move to that 8th grade level. And you want to look at that next 8th grade level and what it is that they're asking for. They're now, instead of selecting variety of repertoire, now they are explaining the criteria used to select that repertoire. They're not just selecting it, now they have to use an explanation. So you really want to think about what those next steps are for levels 6 and 7. All right, I'm going to take another pause. Are there any questions about the rubrics, how to use the rubrics when scoring, how to check for that evidence, moving on to levels 6 and 7?
Right now, Micah, there's no questions in the chat, but if anyone has a question, you can come off mute and ask at this time. Okay, I think we're good to go.
Well, just talking about support during the peer review process, we want to talk about Firefox as your browser. We want to recommend that everyone download Firefox if you haven't done so already and do your peer reviewing through this browser. We have found that this browser is the one that gives us the least amount of trouble. Do not use Chrome. It is not very well supported by the platform. So Edge, Tracy and I use Edge when we're working, and we have never had a problem, but some teachers have had issues with Edge. Firefox, we have not found any issues with Firefox. So a lot of times when people use Chrome, they are not able to see videos, they're not able to see artwork. So please try Firefox. If you get to a collection, please keep in mind that all collections that you are receiving means that something was uploaded. So that means that all collections were complete, and that's why they're in the queue. So if you get to a collection that you can't see the video or you can't see the piece of artwork and you're in Firefox, please contact us at portfolioquestions@tn.gov, because we want to make sure that we are doing everything we can to view that teacher's collection. We don't want technical issues to be a reason a collection is not scored. I'm going to say this very, very much. Do not use that chat bubble that is available in the platform. That chat bubble does not connect you with anyone who understands the portfolio platform. We are the only people who use the Canvas website for a portfolio platform. And so they do not have technical support for us. So if you are having any technical issues whatsoever, they will not be able to help you. You must email and contact Portfolio Questions for any issues that you have. Now, Tracy and I will be checking this regularly. And so if it is something that needs to be answered immediately, we will be on. We like to say 8, but more than likely, Tracy and I are early birds. We'll be on is probably 7:30 to 5 every day, and also checking periodically in the evenings. But we may not be able to get to you if it's like 11 o'clock at night or 4 o'clock in the morning. But we will try to check that as much as possible so that we can answer you immediately. We also will have live office hours every weekday from 1 to 2 during the entirety of the peer review process. So I will send out this link for you for the office hours. So anybody can come during that 1 to 2 time. Even if nobody shows up, Tracy and I will still be hanging out there working on stuff. And so you're welcome to come at any time during that hour, even if it's just to say hi, but we're there to answer any questions you have, any issues, any trends that you're seeing or concerns that you're seeing with the portfolio process. We want to hear all of that feedback. So we're there to listen. At the end of each week, we will send an email with an update of the model completion. So we'll let you know, hey, there's only about 50 left in the model. If you want to score them, I suggest you get in there and score them. Or your model is got 750 left in it. To please get on that. Please start scoring. We do want to let you know that there's some available and we need people to be scoring. So we also let you know if your model is completed before that June 14th time, you'll receive that email. So again, if you have any concerns, any questions, anything that comes up, please email Tracy and I at portfolio.questions@tn.gov. And I want to thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to listen to my spiel, and I hope you take time to really look at those rubrics as you're scoring. We want to make sure that they're being scored with fidelity to support those teachers. If anybody has any questions, feel free to come off of mute. You're welcome to talk to us. If not, then I hope you have a fantastic afternoon. You're free to go.